Let's go, girls.
Just tell me that I can and show you things that you
Yo, let's go. It's Women Talking Football, or WTF for short. Not to be confused with WFT, which
or whatever
may have
the heck you
sounded
just
like
said.
what I was about to say. Oh, man, it's only the first couple seconds of this show. I think it's going to be a long one. My name is Mallory Hartley. I'm the associate producer here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football and Dave Campbell's Texan Live. Once again, sitting in the hostess's chair. And sitting over there, turning the dials, keeping me right on track. She is the AP of this place. It's AP! No, she's not the AP. She's the EP of this place. She's my AP. It's AP. It's Ashley Pickle.
If my job is to keep you on track, I have got my work cut out for me today.
Correct. I'm struggling already. Dude, I'm so tired. You know what I did last night?
What?
I stayed up really late last night, and I watched some Conference USA After Dark. Sickos Committee.
You should not have done that to yourself.
Yeah, well, I
Knowing
wanted to.
how much
part of my
we
job.
have on the plate at this time in the year, Conference USA After Dark does not need to be a thing.
Here's the thing, though. That is part of my job, though.
Yes.
That is part of my job to watch those games, because we always have a Republic of Football episode, a recap episode of the week on Sundays.
Well,
So
I'm
is
glad
my
that
job.
you can talk about a god-awful loss.
Yeah, talk about two god-awful losses.
Yeah.
I mean, one blowout. UTEP got blown out by New Mexico State, which was kind of depressing because they were tied going into the half. And then just a really let-down loss by Sam Houston.
Yeah, see, the Sam Houston one I understand watching, but, like, more of what I meant was by the end of the first quarter, we knew what you're going to be talking about on ROF on the UTEP game. Like,
Right.
The Sam
No,
Houston
and
one is more understandable.
I didn't really finish that UTEP game. When it started to get kind of out of hand, I
it was awful.
turned it off and went to bed. But I definitely stayed up for the Sam Houston game and half of the UTEP game. But not a great night for the state of Texas, including the Texas Rangers too. So
Yeah.
the state of Texas last night was 0-3 in terms of sports teams. So
Nice.
not a great night. That's why I'm so tired. But nonetheless, we're still here. The train is still kind of on the tracks. So let's get chugging along. On today's show, this is episode 54 of Women Talking Football. We're going to be talking about two different regions, the Big Country and Wichita Falls. These regions are pretty close together, I would say, geographically. And also, going through a bunch of these teams and the ranked teams and stuff, they tend to play each other a lot. So this was a really good decision by you to kind of group these two regions together, because it's also one of those where it's like, how do you draw the line between the two regions? You know, might as well just, combine them into one big region. But at that point, you've got like a super region. So
Right. Well, and that's
get it.
the other thing. We talked about it last week with with doing the Austin area teams, and it was like Columbus was the
Where do you
singular
put
town
them?
that it doesn't
Right.
make sense. But they're in the exact opposite problem of Wichita Falls. Like Columbus, they have 4 very large populated regions surrounding them, literally north, south, east, west, all the
Right.
way around. With Wichita Falls, they're just out on an island. They know
Yeah.
that. So
Right.
we make them their own region, even though it's like the smallest region in the state.
Right.
But yes, if you're going to lump them in somewhere, I would say Big Country is the way to go.
Right, exactly. We'll also talk to News Channel 6 sports director, Miss Robin Hearn, up there in the Wichita Falls area to give you her insight on what she has seen and liked so far up there in that region. But first, AP, it is already week 9 of the Texas high school football season. That's why I'm so tired, too. It's already week 9. And that means it's episode 9 of Texas Football Tonight. And so, without further ado, it is time to reveal the week 9 Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight Spotlight Games.
The tired train continues
Yes,
as
sir.
we,
Woo!
literally the two of us, with Greg Powers and Carter Yates, are, as soon as we finish this show, not even cutting the show, I'll do that tomorrow.
Correct.
But we are headed down to Stephenville, Texas to go watch this game live and in person. This is one that quite literally we have had circled on our calendar since the moment schedules came out. We were talking about this before the season ever started, and it has lived up to its expectation as the 4th-ranked team in 4A Division I. It takes on the 7th-ranked team in Stephenville, both in the same district. That, an incredibly fun district. We watched last week as China Spring and Waco La Vega took it down to the wire. The Cougars able to pull that one out. Now they try to go on the road up to the big dog that is Stephenville. Incredibly excited to see this one. It's funny because Tepper and I talked about it earlier. It's interesting because at this point last year, we were equally as excited for this game. I think it was easy to say Stephenville had the better offense, China Spring had the better defense.
Right.
Oh, how the turntables have turned, to quote one great Michael Scott. China Spring's offense has been explosive. Cash McCollum, incredibly excited to see him play in person
UNT
tonight.
commit, Caw.
And then on the Stephenville side, honestly, I think their defense has been what's been incredibly stout for this team this year. So very, very interested to see how this China Spring defense tries to stop Ryan Gafford. Interested to see how Stephenville's offense tries to get going against China Spring. So incredibly excited for that one. We will be there. We will also, tomorrow night on Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tonight, be looking back at the highlights from our great friends, Drake Toll and Cameron Stewart. Excited to see those guys tonight and all of the buffoonery that comes with that. Moving on to our next Thursday night.
That's a good word for it.
Thank you. Moving on to our next Thursday night game. This one you can watch live on Dave Campbell's Texan Live tonight, TexanLive.com. The 22nd ranked Katy Jordan Warriors take on Katy Taylor. This one a district matchup in that wild district that is 19-6A. This is exactly one of those keep your eye off the ball games. Because everyone right now is wondering, what is Katy doing? Are they going D1? Are they going D2? It's basically set in stone at this point, unless Katy was to absolutely trip up in like the weirdest way, that they will be district champions. If they were to trip up, it might result in something of like a co-district championship, but they're basically locked in to take that. Now, do they end up going D1 or D2? That all actually depends on Katy Taylor. So this one, and it specifically, the seeding purposes, Katy Taylor from an alignment, like a numbers perspective, is the deciding factor for Katy. But if Taylor ends up beating Jordan, that has huge implications as to whether or not Katy is going D1. So a very big sickos committee, keep your eye off the ball, fun matchup in District 19-6A that'll answer a lot of questions that we have as to where Gary Joseph and his Katy Tigers will land. Moving on now into our Friday games. How about this one? Alvin Shadow Creek taking on Pearland Dawson. Another one down there in the greater Houston area that's going to reflect a lot on the seeding. Excited to see this one and see, especially, I mean, that Shadow Creek defense has looked really good. How can Dawson try and get past that? But this one should be very exciting. Another one down in the greater Houston area. Start licking your chops to this. Number 7, Hampshire Finette, visiting the second-ranked team in 4A Division II in the Silsbee Tigers. I think that it's pretty easy to say that this one is for the district championship. This one all comes down. Tepper said it earlier, and he's exactly right. This one all comes down to how Hampshire Finette does up front. Because Silsbee is Silsbee. They've got the guy in Draylon Miller. It should be an absolute blast to watch that. But how does the front 7 of the Hampshire Finette defense respond to that? Because if you let Draylon Miller and the rest of their offense, I mean, they've got another good wide receiver. They've got a good run game.
They've got
on
a great
the ground.
offensive line.
Yeah, and it's like, are they going to be able to apply enough pressure up front to relieve some of that pressure off the defensive backs? Because Draylon Miller and the rest of that team, they're going to get their own in the backfield. There's no doubt about it. But is there enough pressure to mitigate the amount of times they end up in those pressure situations out of their secondary? That will be decided on by that front 7 on the Finette defensive line. So incredibly excited to see that. Also, only 3 matchups of undefeated in the state. So as Rick Renner used to say, someone's O must go.
I like that. That's funny.
let's travel up, shall we? Down from us, up from Silsbee and Hampshire Frenette to the greater Austin area as the Cavaliers of Lake Travis, the 11th ranked team in 6A, take on the Dripping Springs Tiger, a district matchup out of District 26 6A. I think 26 6A sounds right.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Lake Travis, thank you. Westlake has already solidified themselves as the favorite in this district. They have beat both of these teams. That being said, last week is when Drip played Westlake, and they held with them. That game was 14-14 for the longest time. So I think that this is a huge opportunity for Dripping Springs to say, okay, hey, we want to be what is considered the second best team, if not, always contending for first. And it's not just, Westlake and Lake Travis rolls over everybody at this point. So this one with Galen Zimmerman and his squad is very, very intriguing. This one doesn't have much worry for seeding because they're going to split. So if Dripping Springs is able to win this game, they should likely be the number 1 seed in the D2 pool, which would be a great place for them to end up. Likely then, if Vandergrift ends up going D2, talk about another a replay of the week 1 of the season.
Yeah, that was tasty on itself.
Yes, and for a fact that Dripping Springs would like the opportunity to play Vandergrift again.
Yes.
So this one kind of depends on the seeding, not a whole lot, but it does speak a lot to who's in control of this district, and I think that they have a great shot to take down Lake Travis. Moving up even further north, we head to the more Waco area as Midlothian takes on Lake Belton. You've heard of the Micah Hudson show. I don't have to tell you that, but in case you might be unaware, these are 2 5-star receivers going on against each other between Bryant Wesco and Micah Hudson. I don't think we have Wesco as a 5-star, but many recruiting sites
247 does, I think.
Yeah, I know for a fact that we have Micah Hudson as a 5-star, but so that's kind of like your flashy thing. This is also super interesting because this district is just chaos right now. 4-5 AD1. I think Red Oak has solidified themselves as the lead in that,
but they beat Lake Belton earlier in the year.
So this will definitely likely be for the 2 and 3 spot, on top of the fact that if you want to get even more sick, we talked about this on Texas Football Today, this matchup, this is District 4. If you look at District 3, that's Aledo, Burleson Centennial, Denton Ryan. Really, it's funny because we did the math. It's almost better to end up third in this district than it is to end up second, because if you are third in this district, you would likely, and those numbers stay true to form throughout the playoffs, you wouldn't see Aledo until the regional semifinals.
Right.
If you're second, you're going to run into Aledo right off the bat, basically. So this one not only is huge seeding purposes within the own district, it's almost a bigger playoff seeding match, because then at that point you're likely playing someone like Denton Ryan, who it's like, okay, you think that you can handle that.
Yeah.
Burleson Centennial is definitely not a walkover, but you want to avoid Aledo for as long as possible, and the loser of this game might get the better playoff draw than the winner of it, but rest assured, both of these teams are going to go out and try to win this game.
Right. Which, this is not a spotlight game, but Aledo and Denton Ryan are playing tomorrow night, actually, at Aledo. So very interesting there. They're both 1 and 2 in that district, but interested to see how that turns out. I think I know how it's going to turn out, but you never know.
But you can watch it live on TexanLive.com,
you certainly can.
And we can all find out together. Also, we will definitely be showing highlights of that game on Texas Football tonight, so keep an eye on that one. Moving out between a DFW and Beast Texas cross-regional matchup, the number 2 Longview Lobos and their head coach John King travel back to DFW to play in the stadium that they have played in once before this season. You'll remember going the way back machine. They played McKinney week 1, ended up falling there. So interesting to see if they can go back to McKinney ISD Stadium and
played them well too.
Yes, played them very well. Can get a little bit of revenge, and what they want more than anything is to get it against McKinney North, their district foe. There, we talked to their head coach, Kendall Brewer earlier today, which was very funny because that's not who we thought we were calling. We thought we were calling the Paradise head coach. Turned out it was Coach Brewer, and he did a fantastic job. So appreciate him hopping on and talking with us on TFT. The perfect way to celebrate the 8th anniversary of TFT, by the way.
I did see that. That's fantastic.
But anyway, McKinney North has got a great offense. They have had a great ground game. So very, very interested to see, one, how Longview's defense reacts to facing off a team that plays a similar style ball as they do, and also interested to see how well their front can hold on the offensive side to open up those holes for Taylor Tatum and let us do his thing. So this one is really tasty. I'm excited for that one. And finally, rounding it all out, which is arguably, let's see if that pops up, the game of the week across the state of Texas. Talk about someone's O must go. Number 5, Paradise, facing off against number 7, Brock in 3A Division 1. This is just tasty. Paradise is not a fluke either. Like, we hear of Brock a lot. Since they've become a program like 8 or 9 years ago, they've always been in the conversation. We've talked about them a lot this year. We've saw them drop one to Wimberley, but hey, you know, they always play
always play
a
tough schedule.
Yes, their non-district schedule is absolutely insane, and this is the exact type of reason why they do that, because now they're going in and they're not going to be worried about what this Paradise squad has to bring, but man, they are talented. They look like one of the best programs in the state, so incredibly excited to, for the first time in a long time, watch Brock get a legitimate contest held against them in a district matchup.
A district matchup, right. Yeah, this will definitely determine that District 4 3A
yes, absolutely.
championship. Yes.
So there you go. There they are, the spotlight games for Week 9 of Texas football tonight. We will be broadcasting it for free on TexanLive.com, on YouTube, wherever you're watching the show right now, and on Twitter. We're still going to try and find Facebook. Me and Mark Zuckerberg are in a massive Why I Oughta war right now. That guy. If I can figure out past his semantics, then we will also be on Facebook. But see if I'm victorious against Mark Zuckerberg tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. on Facebook.
Nick Glaubius and Ishmael Johnson, they're back on the desk to bring you the best coverage of Texas high school football around the state tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. You can stream it live on TexanLive.com for free. Join us there. All right, Pickle. Before we talk to Miss Robin Hearn, let's hear a good word from our sponsors.
Born and bred in Texas hits a little different, as it should. Texas loves doing business with fellow Texans. VCR Now takes its Texas roots as seriously as its many partnerships with schools and universities around the state. It's also why we're so proud to promote our brand in the pages of the Texas Bible, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and on the airwaves of Texas Football Today. Driven by producing quality broadcast video, state-of-the-art audio, and LED video scoreboards at affordable prices, VCR Now makes sure to listen to your needs in its athletic department before recommending the next best steps. Building great products is our business, and it's our focus on building meaningful, long-term partnerships with our clients that sets us apart. From our 24/7, 365-day help desk, the training lab in our hometown of Red Oak, or our sports marketing business plan that puts money back in the hands of our athletic departments we support, VCR Now is built to last. Reach out to us today at info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW. Again, that's info@vcrnow.com or by calling 855-GO-VCR-NOW.
All right, AP, let's head on over to the hotline, and let's bring in News Channel 6 Sports Director, Miss Robin Hearn. Robin, how you doing, girl?
I'm good. I'm sitting in traffic. How are you guys doing?
Doing
better
well.
than that.
I was going to say, better than that. We're sitting in a nice, cool studio right now. Well, thanks so
I would
much.
rather be doing that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for hopping on with us. And whenever we have a new reporter on Women Talking Football, we love for our audience and ourselves to get to know them a little bit better. So why don't you give us your elevator pitch, you know, kind of who you are and how did you get to the Wichita Falls area covering Texas high school football?
Yeah, so like you guys said, I'm Robin Hearn. I grew up in the Dallas area. I went to Rockwall High School, so about 30 minutes outside of Dallas. So I've been around football my entire life. After graduating from high school, I went to Oklahoma State University, go Pokes, where I got my degree in sports media. And from there, I went to Binghamton, New York, which is like lower upstate New York. It's like an hour south of Syracuse, right there on the border of New York and Pennsylvania. And from there, I was a news reporter because obviously we had COVID happen the year I graduated from college. Then I was able to get into the sports department by the end of 2020. I stayed there for about a year, and then my friend told me about the job in KUZ out in Wichita Falls, and obviously I wanted to get closer to home because I did not like New York winters, and I wanted to get back and cover the football that I grew up on. So now I'm here. I've been here for almost 2 years, which is crazy to say, but it's been great, and we've been having a lot of good football and a lot of good state runs.
Absolutely, and kind of speaking to that a little bit, let's look at some of the bigger schools first. You've got Wichita Falls,
Yes.
Wichita Falls, Hershey, Wichita Falls. Ryder always kind of seems to be in the postseason talks every single year. What have you seen from the bigger school classifications that you've liked so far this season?
Yeah, so from those schools, obviously, all three of them have been playing with a lot more heart this year because, as everybody knows, this will be the last year that all three of these schools will be high schools because WFISD is moving to 2 new high schools, Memorial and Legacy, starting next season. So I've been seeing a lot of heart from them. Obviously, it was a slower start for Old High and a much better start for Ryder. And then you have Hershey that was kind of sitting in the middle. They had a couple of good wins, some really not good losses, and then they had a really good win against Graham to open up district play, which I don't know if I've ever seen a stadium be so electric for that game besides Ryder Old High. I think the one thing about the game for Hershey and Graham was the Hershey defense being able to shut out Graham, who we know is really good at putting up points. They shut him out the entire second half. So that was impressive to me.
I'm sure that you were at that obviously the last historic battle there between Old High and Ryder. What was it like being there? I mean, we talked to Coach Freeman and just know how much that means not only to the kids in the program, the schools, but that community as a whole. I mean, across the state of Texas, that's a nationally recognized rivalry. What was it like to be there for that?
One, it was surreal because of how packed it was. I don't think my time being here, obviously only 2 years, I'd seen Memorial be that packed at one time. And you could tell that this was a passionate moment for both sides. And when talking to both the coaches, they understood that, and they tried to make their guys understand that, yes, this is a rivalry game, but we still have to play and stay focused. And when I talked to Mark Bindle, the Ryder head coach, you know, he went to Old High and he said that it was bittersweet for him because he played in that game and now he's coaching the other team. So obviously there was a lot of feelings there, but it was very emotional, I think, for a lot of people knowing that it was the last one. But it was also a lot of fun because we had a lot of stories to go with it, just to not even on the football field, but talking about the band, talking about all the stuff, all the traditions that all the teams have. So it was a lot of fun. Obviously, it did not go the way that Old High was hoping, but it was still a nice game to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. Some great coaches there at the big classifications.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Ashley put the camera on herself when I was talking. It messed me. No, it's all good. No, there's no doubt. The coaches up there are fantastic, especially in like the top of the classifications. But there's really no denying that, especially this year, that the smaller schools have dominated the rankings up there in the Wichita Falls region. Who do you think out of those smaller schools may have the best opportunity to make it to AT&T Stadium in December?
Well, I mean, number one, obvious, is the number one team in 1A Division II, Benjamin. I mean, they got there last year, and they have the makings of doing it again. The other school that has shocked me, but in a good way, was Knox City. They're still sitting right behind Gordon in the state rankings. So I definitely think that we could see those two teams there. They both have been dominating on both ends. For Benjamin, you have Grayson Rigdon, who has been picking up where he left off. So it's going to be exciting to see who gets there. But I think for us, it's going to be our 1A schools, our six-man football. And honestly, growing up in Dallas, I never watched six-man football, and then I started covering it, and I was like, oh, this is fun.
Oh, yeah. It's like another sport. It really is.
Yes.
You get your workout in, too. Oh, my
Oh,
God.
oh,
Walking
yeah.
up the
Sure.
sidelines.
Oh, yeah. You get some good 90 to 80 games every once in a while. No, it's fantastic.
Yes.
Well,
And it goes by so quickly.
oh,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, yeah, you 45. Sometimes you see a 45 in, like, the first quarter, and you're like, oh, well, it's done. You know?
It's fun.
Well, you already mentioned the star in Grayson Rigdon. There's no denying that he's probably the standout up there. But who else have you seen player-wise? Maybe I've seen a lot of great quarterbacks put up some great numbers up there in the Wichita Falls area. Who have you seen that's been really impressive so far this year, maybe besides Grayson Rigdon?
Yeah, I mean, just going to another school kind of outside of Wichita Falls, but Jacksboro has been doing really good. They're kind of my sleeper team right now. I had to check their record because I have them as my game of the week against Merkel, and they're 7-0, and I have to be like, are they really 7-0? And I look back, I'm like, they're 7-0. So you have Lando Belcher there as the QB, Howard as one of their wide receivers has been doing really well. So I like the Tigers so far this season. They have been putting up really good numbers. On the other side for Hershey, they have Jamel McFalls coming back in at quarterback, and to see how he has, been able to do things very well, especially without Jamarion Carroll or Amarion Peterson there to kind of help him out. It's great to see how he's doing because he's been able to kind of get into that starter role a little bit better this year.
I have a question specifically about Old High and a
Sure.
crucial member of that program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but Dub the Coyote. Are you or are you not on the bandwagon of Dub the Coyote?
To know Dub the Coyote is to know Grant Freeman, and
Yep. Couldn't have said it better.
And I'm all for it. It's a lot of fun to see that posted after every single Old High win. I kind of missed it for a couple of weeks when they weren't doing so hot.
Yeah, he was
But-
grounded.
Yeah,
Unground
it's great
Dub.
I know it's great to see him, and that's another thing about Wichita Falls that I love is how passionate these coaches are, and they love to have fun with stuff like that. So I'm a fan of Dub's, and I hope Dub is a fan of mine.
Correct.
I'm sure. Yeah, couldn't have said it better ourselves. That's amazing. Well, Robin, before we let you go, where are you going to be headed this Friday night?
I'll be staying up at Memorial because we have a doubleheader. We have
Let's go.
Paulo. Yes, we have Ryder taking on a team out of Amarillo, and we also have Burke versus Old High, which is a fun little rivalry game that Old High has kind of been dominating since it started. So I'll be getting those two games. Oh, and then I'm also going to try to go down to Windthorst at Archer City, a fun other rivalry
That
game
is
in
a good
2A.
one.
Yeah, that rocks.
Well,
Yeah,
awesome.
that's fun.
That's a fun slate for you. Man, we're all
Thank
traveling
you.
kind of far this week.
Yeah.
But anyways, Robin, thanks so much for hopping on with us today. I know it's your busy season as well as our busy season, but we wish you the best of luck the rest of this season, and maybe we'll see you at AT&T Stadium come December.
Oh, yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me on this. This is a great platform that you guys are using, and I love listening to you guys.
Oh, thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Robin.
Appreciate you, girl.
You're welcome. Hey, have a great day.
There she goes, Miss Robin Hearn, sports director up there in Wichita Falls at News Channel 6. We appreciate her taking the time to hop on with us to talk a little Wichita Falls region. I was going to ask her, like we always do, where do you eat up in Wichita Falls? But I knew you had the answer to that because you went to a game.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask. It's the there is a place, and in the comments, I need someone to tell me. There is a place, I want to say it's like Caprock Grill, but that might be the place in Lubbock that I like. Anyway, there's a place in
Okay.
Wichita Falls that has really good mozzarella sticks. Like, really good mozzarella sticks. And I need someone to remind me where it is because Tepper and I have been, because we usually go up to the 6-man coaching clinic, and it's held at Midwestern State.
Midwestern State, that's
and
right.
so I asked some of my buddies who golfed out at Midwestern State, like, hey, where do we eat? And they were like, you got to go get the mott sticks. And I was like, say less. You had me at fried cheese.
Fried cheese. Yeah.
Big fried cheese girl.
We are, both of us are big
Correct.
fried cheese girls.
Always never met a fried cheese I don't like.
No, you're crazy if you have.
That's going to be the name of this podcast when I post it. Big fried cheese girls.
Yeah, maybe we'll have some fried cheese tonight in Stephenville.
Not a bad plan.
I got you. All right. You heard Miss Robin Hearn's take on the Wichita Falls region. Now, we're going to give you our take on the region up north, starting with the state-ranked teams of the Wichita Falls region. And starting in 3A Division II, it's number 8 Holiday. Currently 6-1 on the year. Of course, only loss coming from Jim Ned earlier on in the season. Definitely a contender, I would say, to win the region, but they're eventually going to run into Gunner. And we all know who Gunner is. They don't need any introduction. And guys, hate to break it to you, but Gunner looks like Gunner this year.
Gunner looks like a supercharged Gunner right now.
Yeah, they're on a heater right
Holiday
now.
has looked really well though, and they're always going to contend out of Region 1 for the good part of the playoffs. The win or the loss to Jim Ned has aged a little interesting in the past couple of weeks because Jim Ned has dropped a couple of games that we didn't think that they should drop. So I do think Holiday is a contender. I don't think that they are as much of a contender as they have been maybe the past couple of years, but they always have the right to go shock people in the playoffs.
Yeah, they've got a ton of playmakers on both sides of the ball. They've got a big offensive line, just huge up front on both sides of the ball. It'll be a little tougher to get there, but definitely a contender, I'd say. Moving right down to 2A Division II, it's number 10 Seymour. And this team I feel like has always been pretty good, but they've just been like exceptional this year. 6-1 to start this season. Only loss coming from Albany, which is very understandable because Albany is Albany. And they look freaking fantastic. Definitely led by their quarterback, Braden Lloyd, who's just been absolutely lighting it up the field this year. I'll talk more about him later. But number 10, Seymour out of 2A Division II. Moving right down to 1A Division I, it's number 2 Knox City. A perfect 7-0 record so far for the Greyhounds, and they aren't really slowing down. They had a huge win over number 4 Westbrook the first game of the season, and then a couple of games later they take on number 9 Rankin and win that game pretty handedly too. So they are looking really, really good, making a case for maybe an appearance in at AT&T Stadium later in December with that kind of resume.
Yeah, that whooping that they put on Rankin was when they really started to take statewide potential, because the Greyhounds, we thought that they were going to be good. They had a good amount of returners, and it was like, okay, what can they actually do with it? And like you said, the Rankin win was absolutely huge. Their big game is actually tomorrow. That game against Northside will definitely be the deciding for the district championship, which is funny to say because usually we would say that Spur would be up there in the mix. I think they lost a ton to Graduation, so that game tomorrow will, I think, decide that, and very interested to see how that, but they are cooking with Crisco.
Well, and it's funny too because cooking with Crisco. That was funny.
Nice.
It was. You always make me laugh. Well, it's just funny too because I was looking at the computer later, and that matchup, Knox City's like a 64-point favorite in that matchup.
Yeah,
and that's to decide the district title.
Yep.
They're 1-2 right now, which is crazy to think about. But Knox City is just that good. So keep your eye on them. And to close it all out in the Wichita Falls area, 1A Division II. Miss Robin already talked about him. Number 1 Benjamin. Benjamin. Of course, they've just looked unstoppable this year. They haven't scored under 50 points all season, and that's mostly, I'd say, due to their guy, Grayson Rigdon, with 2,029 total yards and 35 touchdowns on the season. He is
easy money.
Easy money. If you remember back a couple years ago, he was actually at Strawn when they won the state championship couple years ago. Now he's at Benjamin, and he's doing the same thing he did at Strawn. He's just dominated the entire.
Yeah, I think he's either 3 or 4 time state championship MVP. Because I know he won offensive MVP his freshman year at Strawn, and then I thought he won defensive, and then he won offensive again last year at Benjamin.
Yeah, well, he's a basketball player too, and I think he won it in basketball too. For state, but I could be wrong about that. But I know he's just an athlete all around. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But definitely, probably my pick to win 1A Division II. But you never know. And to close it all out, number 7 Newcastle, 5-1 on the season. Only loss coming from Jonesboro, but of course that's punching up a division, and Jonesboro is ranked too. So really kind of an interesting matchup there. They have Strawn next, and our favorites definitely to win District 8 1A Division 2. Regionally, it's probably going to be a little tough for them just because they're going to eventually run into Benjamin and could be Jayton as well. So tough little regional stretch there, but they definitely have the playmakers to make it happen.
Yeah, the real interesting thing about them in that game against Jonesboro, like you said, one, punching up to a state-ranked opponent, but two, they only lost that game 50-38. And I mean, from a not even
perspective,
I was just going to say the defense holding a Jonesboro squad to 50 points is actually, I know that sounds crazy. Remember, we're talking about six-man football.
Right.
The fact that they held a state-ranked opponent in the classification higher than them to just 50 points is really impressive.
Right.
They've got a very good defense there for the Bobcats.
Exactly. So there you go, your 5 state-ranked teams in the Wichita Falls region. And with that being said, let's switch it into the Big Country state-ranked teams. Starting off in Class 4A, Division 1, the number 7 Stephenville Yellow Jackets. We'll see you later tonight. And yeah, the story here is they're still good. They're going to be good. They won the 5A Division 2 state championship back in 2021 with, of course, Coach Doty there at the helm, and they've kind of been on a heater ever since. This team is just filled with athletes on both sides of the ball. And it seems like they just reload every single year. Like they lose a bunch every year, but they also just seemed like to reload. They've always got a good class coming in of younger athletes that have sat down and watched their elders, I guess I should say, kind of lead the way, and they take a lot from that. So it always just seems like they've got playmakers on both sides of the field. They're 5-2 currently on the season with a loss coming from Midlothian Heritage, and that was only by 3 points. And of course, that's also punching up a classification. And I saw Midlothian Heritage play in person last week, and that team is the real deal. That is a very, very good team who looks like a state title contender. And then they dropped one to Abilene Wiley earlier in the season.
Yeah, that was one they shouldn't have dropped.
No.
They shouldn't have dropped that. The one thing that I will say is I have been so impressed, and a tip of the cap goes to Sterling Doty, because when there's times that they have graduated so many people, which after that title class, they did graduate so many people. Ryder Lambert was back at quarterback, but Coy Aiken, his number one receiver, was gone. They graduated their running back after that state title team. So we knew that the offense was going to take a massive hit that year. Well, guess what? Their defense stepped up. And it just seems like they haven't been able to pair it perfectly both back together since that state title run, but it has one side of the ball has completely taken some of the pressure off the other side of the ball to equal a bunch of wins.
Definitely.
And we were very skeptical of them after they lost to Midlothian Heritage in week 1. That was very skeptic. And then it was like, okay, they're starting to look good. Then they drop one to Abilene Wiley, and it's like, okay, snip, snap, back and forth. They have a flair for the dramatic of always keeping these close games. Sterling Doty has probably aged 7 years in the past 3 years because of how close all of these games have been, including the matchup against China Spring last year. So very, very, tonight is when I feel like I finally get my, do I believe in the Yellow Jackets, or do I think they'll make it maybe a couple rounds deep and are not a true contender? Tonight will answer that for me personally.
Right. I'm so excited to see Cash McCollum go up against this defense.
And they've got a backloaded schedule like no other. They've got China Spring tonight, Alvarado next week, which we talked about too, on the road at Alvarado. Makes me nervous.
That's
even if
tough.
they beat China Spring. I'm almost more nervous if they do beat China Spring tonight and then they go to Alvarado and slip up. And then they've got Waco La Vega. So they've got the 3 toughest teams in the district in the last 3 weeks of the season. So yikes.
And then they've already beaten Brownwood too, who is also number 8 in 4A Division 1, but that was a really, really stout win by Stephenville. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and move it right along to number 8, Brownwood. This program, I like this program a lot, just in itself, is just such a historic program. I mean, like, with longtime head coach Gordon Wood there, the stadium's named after him. This is just, to me, feels like the epitome of Texas high school football, is this Brownwood Lions program.
Sammy Burnett, the current head coach, is a Brownwood graduate.
Right, exactly.
They love tradition.
They love tradition. It just seems like this is Texas high school football in of itself. And we did a cover shoot there like last year, 2 years ago, maybe last year, but
2 magazines ago
to just kind of signify like, hey, this is Texas high school football. This is what Brownwood is. But they've done an exceptional job this year. Of course, they're 7-1, only loss coming from Stephenville. And their quarterback has been really impressive so far. They run the spread offense because, of course, they're a West Texas team, and quarterback Icall has looked really, really good this season. I think they're going to win the district title, which puts them in great contention for possibly running through this region. But it's just hard to tell because, again, this region is pretty stacked. It's a tough classification to do well in. There's a lot of different contenders with just a lot of different playmakers too. It'll be tough, but definitely they're up there.
Yeah, you have to feel good. And Brownwood's always one of those schools, and we talked about it with realignment. We'll guarantee to talk about it with realignment again. They're kind of out there in their own little world, and it's like, okay, do you send them south? Do you send them over to the Lubbock schools? A ton of traveling. This time they opted to go west with the Lubbock schools. And I think that plays favorable for them, especially when you get to the playoffs, because they're going to be traveling long distance for the playoffs, and they're going to be ready to do that.
Right.
So they definitely have the one up on, hey, we are going to have to buckle down. But yeah, Icall is, we've had our eyes on him for a long time, and it's really fun to see him coming into fruition like we always thought the talented player that he has been.
Because he's been he's been a starter in the varsity program for a couple years now, but this year he's really kind of come into fruition and kind of found himself. So definitely a leader on that Brownwood squad. Moving right along to 3A Division I. Hello, number 10, Clyde. They kind of like came out of nowhere. I feel like
very sneakily crept up into the rankings and
really,
a 7-0 record.
7-0 start, undefeated so far this season. And I didn't know if you knew this, but I was looking through their past couple of seasons, but they haven't, I don't know the last time they've done this well or started this well, but they haven't had a winning season since like 2019, 2018 maybe. So just kind of came out of nowhere. And actually, a couple of years ago, back in 2021, they had a 1-8 record. So this kind of turnaround has been super, super impressive for this Clyde squad. And of course, they run the spread offense as well. And they're led by quarterback Blake Carr, who's been phenomenal this season. I'm not talking about him later just because we have a lot of really great quarterbacks to talk about with these two regions. But he's thrown for almost 1,500 yards and 20 total touchdowns on the season, and it helps that he's got just a multitude of different receivers that can make plays. Jacob Louder, Dejon Booker, and Gage Womack, definitely his go-to guys there. And this is just a talented offense that can stretch defenses thin and will just absolutely burn you in the secondary. I think they're a lock for the district title and will probably finish the regular season, I would say, undefeated, because they've got 2 more games, I believe, with a bye week sprinkled in there, but definitely probably the favorites to win that district. And moving over to Class 2A Division I, no introduction needed. Number 6, Holly, the reigning 2A Division I state champions. Of course, going undefeated all last season. Now they've kind of had a different kind of a start this year. They're 5-2 this season, but they've been tested real early. 2 losses, one coming from Jim Ned, and the other one coming from Albany. 2 powerhouses for the most part, but neither were blowouts. They played them both of those teams really, really close. That Albany loss, obviously not bad at all. Now they are, I guess, punching down a division, but Albany, we've talked about them before. They're just completely stacked. So,
yeah.
And
go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, yeah, Holly, the biggest difference for Holly this year has been figuring out how to be more one-dimensional. And they're not one-dimensional, but you think about last year, what they did with the combination of Deontay Ramon out on the outside.
Yep.
You had Austin Compton just absolutely annihilating people in the ground game. That's what Holly has had to figure out. They still have Deontay. He's looked great, no doubt about it, but they don't have that super solid 1-2 punch like they did last year with Austin Compton. So it was just, I think that's why those losses early in the season came of, okay, well, they're going to absolutely double or triple team Deontay Ramon. How do we find that effective offensive spark that we had last year? And they've created those players into that role.
Yeah, another one of those players too, Chandlin Myers, is also a dynamic 2-way player for the Holly Bearcats, and he's kind of stepped up into that role as well. But definitely a team that is always stacked and always seems to have the playmakers to go far and to do well in the playoffs. Might make it to AT&T Stadium this year. I don't want to project anything, but they've got a good chance. Maybe a little bit more difficult than last season, but wouldn't be surprised. I would not ride them off. Moving right along to 2A Division II, number 1 Albany. The reigning 2A Division II state championship. The 2A Division II state champions. Of course, coached by the, I guess, all-star in Denny Faith, grabbing his first state title ever last season. And talk about a team that has also just absolutely looked the part again this season. A really fantastic 7-0 start with wins, of course, over Hawley. And they handled Seymour pretty well, who is a 2A Division II state-ranked team that we just talked about. I really don't think there's any question in Adam Hill being their absolute standout of a player.
Oh, he
can
insane.
play. I'm going to talk about him more a little bit later, but he can play both sides of the ball really, really well. I mean, he's been a defensive standout for the past couple of years, especially last year in their state championship win, but he's really kind of taken more of an identity in the ground game. But we'll talk about him more later, but he's fantastic for this team. And here's the thing about Albany. They could absolutely make it back to AT&T Stadium this year. Absolutely make it back. I would honestly pencil them in to at least make an appearance there at AT&T Stadium. I just don't think that there's anything. I mean, this train is full speed on the tracks right now, and I just don't see them stopping or slowing down at any point.
Barring
this
an
season.
injury.
Right.
Like, barring a real key injury, I don't think that there's any debate that that Albany is the favorite to make it back there. And I think we probably should have seen this coming if we didn't just enough from the X's and O's in the fact that Denny Faith, who has been at that school for now in his 37th season, I believe, he's going to know.
Right.
He's going to know if they were going to completely fall off, that maybe it's time to hang up the hat and retire, go out on top, do what Ray Biles did at Lorena. He got his unjust, no complaints about it, undisputed state championship. You would think that Coach Faith would do the same thing if he didn't think that this team had a 100% chance to go back and try and repeat.
Yeah, he knew his superstar Adam Hill was coming back, and he said, "Hey, why don't we try for
I've been
just
doing this for
one
36
more?
years.
What's
is
one
a
more year
37th
gonna
year?"
hurt?"
Yeah.
Right, and maybe win another state title at it. But yes,
So like Greg Powers always says, don't watch what they say, watch what they do. And
Exactly.
returning should have been the green light that we needed to go.
This team's gonna be
Lions
pretty
are going
good.
to be pretty good this year.
All right, moving into the 6-man ranks, 1A Division I, number 4, Westbrook, the reigning 1A Division I state champion. This region is just full of state championships,
Dude, per capita,
dude.
it's insane.
It really is. And another team that's really looked the part this season. They're 6-1 currently, only loss coming from Knox City, and of course Knox City is legit. They're
That should have been our
1A Division I.
tip-off that I think when they played that game, we were more concerned about, is Westbrook down than we were about, Knox City might just be really stinking good.
Stinking good. Right. That's one of those losses that like has kind of aged really well. You know?
Yep.
Exactly. And they really play great complementary football. They're outscoring opponents 343-64, and most of those points that they've allowed were against that Knox City team that is fantastic.
Yeah, they've allowed 14 total or 28 total points in the last 6 games. So
Right.
don't count that Knox City game.
No.
28 points in the last 6 games.
Right, exactly. Fantastic complementary football, and they've been led by 2-way player Cedric Ware, who we've been talking about for the past couple of seasons now, because he's probably the best player that steps onto the field at literally any given game, I would say. He's been fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Cedric Ware is great at football, and water is still wet. Like, the earth is still spinning.
Right, I know. I looked down and I was like, oh, yeah, he's still making plays.
Yeah,
Like,
I did Cedric. Well, no. Anyway, keep going.
okay. Let's round it all out with the smallest
I thought
classification
Cedric
that there
Ware
is.
graduated, but maybe I'm making that up in my brain.
Mm-mm.
I thought he graduated after last year. Maybe we've just been talking about him for literally that long.
No, that's what I'm saying. It feels like we have been.
Yeah,
but
because I wrote the 1A cover boy story over him like 2 years
I do
ago.
remember that.
I swore he graduated.
I remember that.
That's crazy.
1A Division II, number 3, Jayton. Jayton is not a reigning state champ, but they could be because they're really stinking good this year, and they're a perennial
They're not,
powerhouse.
but you could be.
They could be. under coach Josh Staniland for the past decade. They're 7-0 to start the season with a huge win over ranked Klondike earlier on in the season. That was, in hindsight, a really, really good win. They have a lot of talent returning, which says a lot about a smaller 6-man program. So experience for them really has not been an issue. And they've just always seem to have weapons all over the field. Quarterback Sean Staniland, coach's son, has looked the part, and Aiden Salazar has also looked the part as well. And they look like a state contender right now, state title contender. Of course, they'll probably run into Benjamin, I believe, in that same region. So that's going to be a tough one to overcome. But, man, I would love to see that kind of matchup. Really, really would be a fun game to see.
Yeah, another team that its defense has really grown into its own. Started off a little shaky there at the very beginning, although playing against some really good teams, just like you said, at Klondike, going to Klondike and beating them, still the 5th-ranked team in 1A Division II. That in and of itself was huge. That's when we were like, okay, the Jaybirds are back. But this defense has been doing really well in the latter half of the season, and if you're ever going to take on a team like Benjamin, it's going to come down to defense.
Right.
Who can get those crucial stops on Grayson Rigdon?
Exactly.
And it's going to take to keep Benjamin from winning a state championship, it's going to be who can stop Grayson Rigdon. That's it. And that's got to be Jayton's full plan going into this.
And that's crazy, too, because, that's every single team that Benjamin is going to face or has faced, that's their sole game plan. And how do you prepare for a player like Grayson Rigdon? I think that's crazy. And of course, again, it's the 6-man level, but still
no one can figure out how to do it.
No one can. And that's the thing. Nobody's been able to figure it out yet.
Yep.
So, it's insane. He's such a great player. And I know we've talked about it before, but it's fun to see a kid light it up like that on both sides of the ball. All right, so there you go. A lot of state-ranked teams in the Wichita Falls and the Big Country. But let's go ahead and switch it over to my favorite segment and talk a little bit of Cruton. Starting off with Graham quarterback Ty Thompson. He's just absolutely lighted up the field this season and has really helped Graham to that 7-1 start that they've had this season. 1,778 passing yards, 18 total touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions on the season. He's added 500 yards on the ground and 10 touchdowns as well to the mix. And he's already passed 5,000 career yards. So congratulations to him. That's really impressive. And he's only a junior, too. So these numbers are only going to get better. And I think he's been starting for this Graham offense since his freshman year. So he's only gotten better each year that we have seen him kind of take the lead of this offense. He's a prolific signal caller in the area and has really taken this Graham offense, I think, to the next level. And he's caught the eyes of a couple of college programs. Dartmouth is in the mix. Brown, McMurray.
He's very smart.
He's very smart.
Good Lord.
He's very, very smart.
A couple. They just happen to be Ivy Leagues.
Right. No, exactly. He's very, very smart. I don't think he has any offers yet. But there's definitely programs that are interested in him and have seen the potential that this kid has.
Well, heck, man, tee it high, let it fly, or go get an Ivy League education. This kid's got it figured out.
No, he can't lose in this situation. He literally cannot lose. Exactly.
Some slight interest from Dartmouth and Brown.
Dude, I had no interest from those schools whatsoever. I was interested in them, but they were not interested in me at all. They were like, absolutely not. Anyways,
they said, may I interest you in North Texas?
Correct. Which, you know what? Choice for me. Who needs Dartmouth?
So anyway, Ty Thompson, if you don't get into your Ivy Leagues, you can always come be a caw with us at North Texas.
Sure. Correct. Anyways, let's talk about Seymour quarterback Braden Lloyd. I've already alluded to him a little bit because this kid has been absolutely electric this season, torching the field all season long. He leads the region, actually, in passing yards and passing touchdowns with 2,142 yards through the air and 34 touchdowns. And the most impressive part is that he's only thrown 2 picks on the season. And he's only a junior, too, just like Ty Thompson, and he has started on varsity ever since he was a freshman as well. He's got a really, really good frame, standing at 6'2", 190 pounds, and can make decisions really, really quick on his feet. He can stretch the defense, finding multiple targets around the field with ease, and obviously has just an absolute cannon of an arm. It doesn't look like he currently holds any offers either, but again, he's still young, just like Ty Thompson, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some trickling in here as the season goes on. Moving right along, we'll get to see this big boy tonight. Stephenville offensive guard Crease Brister. The offensive lineman is an absolute beast, bro. Standing at 6'4", weighing 295 pounds. And he didn't allow a single sack all season in 2022. He was a big part of Stephenville's state championship win back in 2021, and he was only a sophomore when he did so. He's big, and he's physical up front, and super, super athletic. And he's currently committed to play for those Horned Frogs of TCU over there in Fort Worth. So not a very far drive for him.
No.
He's kind of staying close to home.
Yeah, I'm sure mom and dad are super pumped about being able to make the trip up to Fort Worth for that. Very, very excited to see Crease tonight.
Yes. Moving right along, let's talk about Holly wide receiver Deontay Ramon, and you've already kind of alluded to him as well. But the senior has been super impactful on both sides of the ball this season. So let me just go ahead and read his stats real quick. He's caught 40 passes for 778 yards and 10 touchdowns, and he's almost averaging 20 yards a catch.
Light work.
Light work, bro. And on the other side, he's recorded 43 total tackles, 34 solo, 6 tackles for a loss, and 2 picks on the year. He's right. Dude's a playmaker, honestly, wherever you put him on the field. And he's paired up with wide receiver Chandlin Myers, and together these two have really just made secondaries kind of take a step back and go, oh, crap, we're getting torched.
Yeah, Deontay Ramon. Good at football.
Good at football.
Certified good football player.
Correct. He's got an offer currently from Texas Tech, but other in-state programs like Baylor, TCU, and UTSA have taken interest in him as well.
I think Tech might have offered him after the state championship game last year.
Really?
I could be making that up completely, but I think that was the case.
I wouldn't be surprised. He had a phenomenal performance there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. And let's go ahead and round it all out with Albany running back and linebacker Adam Hill. The senior has been electric this season on both sides of the ball. He's run for 1,149 yards and 17 touchdowns, averaging almost 9 yards a carry and 160 yards a game. Averaging per game. That's wild to me. He's also put up some numbers on the other side of the ball, recording 55 total tackles, 36 solo, 15 tackles for a loss, and 8.5 sacks this season. He's got a great frame, standing at 6'2", weighing 205 pounds, and he's just an elusive athlete with just an enormous amount of power.
I love 2A football.
Dude, I do too. I mean, like...
the dual stat lines are like my simple joy of life.
Right. And well, I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier on in the show, but he's always just been kind of known as a menace on the defensive side of the ball, especially last year in the state championship game. But I feel like he's really kind of taken his own as a running back this year. Obviously, you look at his numbers and you're like, oh, wow, like that dude's definitely a running back. He has an offer from Louisiana Tech, and he's got interest from Texas Tech. I don't know what they're recruiting him for, whether that be on the offensive side or the defensive side, but
I would think
this dude
defensive side,
but
I could be wrong.
But this dude could literally, I would, in my opinion, could play both sides of the ball, especially at a program like Louisiana Tech that could use help on both sides of the ball,
yeah.
I would say.
Yep.
So there you go. There's 5 players to watch in the Wichita Falls and Big Country area. And man, dude, what a stacked region to talk about. A couple of regions to talk about. Keeping me in check, bro. Just always keeping me in check.
Bro, let's go.
With that being said, do you have anything else for the great people of Women Talking Football?
No, we gotta go and we gotta get to Stephenville.
Oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock. I didn't realize it was 3 o'clock already.
And the boss needs to talk to us before we leave. We probably did something wrong.
Yeah. Is he pointing at us?
No, he texted me.
Oh, good. Well, hey, Adam.
Maybe I did something wrong.
Maybe you did do something wrong.
Probably so.
Well, thanks for tuning in for Women Talking Football. Make sure to subscribe to us on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, not Spotify, because Spotify doesn't actually exist.
We will be uploading this tomorrow, by the way.
Yes.
It'll be tomorrow. We gotta go. So
Yes, we
it'll
gotta
be
go
tomorrow.
And with that being said, we will see you next Thursday at 2 p.m. on Women Talking Football.
Bye-bye now.